Hi everyone, you're welcome to MyProfessorNote. So this is the series of the quick revision of the history of English literature for your NET set examination of English literature. In this part of the video, we are covering from the Anglo-Saxon period to the Elizabethan period, and after that, the remaining part we will cover in the next video. So let's get started. The main thing in this both period of Anglo-Saxon and the Anglo-Norman, not the much information is there to know from the exam perspective, but still whatever knowledge we have with what seems important on the basis of what the questions being asked, this is what we will share here for these two periods. So Anglo-Saxon period, which started in the 450 AD and ended in the 1066 with the Norman conquest. During this period, there were Germanic tribes came and invaded the England. It includes three tribes: Angles, Saxons and Jutes. They brought their tradition of the oral story telling. Right now, some of the most important work of this age, of this period, is the Beats, the ecclesiastical history of the England people, which is published in the or written in the 1731. It was written in the Latin language, and through this we got to know that there were 5 languages spoken during this time, which includes your Pictish, Britons, English, Latin or Scots, and the linguistic development is seen only in the two languages, which is English and the Latin, because Latin is the language of the sacred book called Bible. Right, so now let's move further. Your Anglo-Norman period started with the Norman conquest 1066, when the William the Duke of Normandy conquered the England. Right, so the most important work of this period we have is the Chanson de Geste. This is the French work. It is dedicated to the Charles the Great, and another work is the Historia Regum Britanniae by the Geoffrey of Monmouth, written in the 1136. Right, another work which is important, and the first historical text is written by the Lyamon Brute. And from this period, the questions which are being formed about the words which are being brought from the French language, like the beef and the pork, and the English word like cow and swine were already there, which were used by the English farmers. Okay, now let's move further to your age of Chaucer, which is from the 1350 to your 1400. During this period, we have seen in the development in the English language now, right? And now the language of the French language start dissolving, right? And the language of English started to come into the power. It became the language of the parliament in the 1362. It became the language of the court in the 1363, and it became the language of the schools in the 1386. Let's talk about the Geoffrey Chaucer. Even though some of the historical events were there, like your 100 Years of War, right, which started in the 1337 and ended in the Age of Revival in the 1453. Chaucer age is known as a Chaucer because he is a very significant character here. Some of his most famous work, and he is called the father of English poetry by the Dryden. He is also called the shining star of the Renaissance period. He is the one who invented the rhyme royal stanza. He is the one first to use the 7-line iambic pentameter. He is the one to invent your couplet, which are later known as the heroic couplets. So some of his most important work is the Book of Duchess, which is dedicated to the wife of John Gaunt on her death. Then the second work of him is the House of Fame, which is the parody of the Dante's Divine Comedy. Then another work is the Parliament of the Falls, where we have the first time reference to the Valentine Day. Then we have the Troilus and Cressida, where he defamed women and he was rebuked for that. And then he praised the women in his next work, which is the Legend of the Women. There we have a 10 legend. One of the most famous is the Legend of Thisbe. Then is one of the most famous work, Canterbury Tale. There we have 29 pilgrims. They are going to the shrine of Thomas Becket. They are staying in the Tabard Inn. All character who tells the tale is 23 characters only, 24 tales in all, 2 tales told by the Chaucer, 2 tales in the prose, 1 prose tale by the Chaucer, 1 prose tale by the Parson, 22 tales in the verse, 2 tale in the prose. We have to remember some of these static information of this poem, right? Harry Bailey is the host. We all know that. And the wife of Bath is the first feminist character here we have in English literature. Okay, now let's talk about his friend John Gower. His 2 most famous work is the Vox Clementis, which portrayed the peasant revolt of 1381, which has a huge impact on just everything, on society, on the writers, on their works as well. Another work of the John Gower is the Confessio Amentis, which means the confession of the lover. John Gower and the Chaucer were good friends. All right. Now the third poet of this period is William Langland, famous for his poem Piers Plowman, where the poet is sleeping on the Malvern Hills and having the dream vision. This is a dream vision poem, the vision of the folks on the field, the full field of the folk, right? This is what the vision is. And this poem is a satire on the churches and the Christianity, and it is the account of the 14th century medieval England, which talks about the society, its economics, and the religion, right? And this is what the work of literature is, to let you know that where the society is standing, that literature is. You know that better. And then we have your Wycliffe, also the part of this period there. Wycliffe is really a revolutionary person, one of the main characters, or one of the main person here in the Lollard movement who started it, right? He was in the favor to translate the Latin Bible into English so it can be accessible to the people, so they don't have to go, because he thinks or it was a reality that the churches and the religion was getting corrupted, or I think, and it was because they were selling indulgence. Indulgence means you just pay them some amount of money and your sins will be forgiven. So what sort of religion is this? Obviously it is a corrupted one, so he was not in the favor of it. But during this time, the translation of the Bible was illegal into any other language, because the language which is accepted, that is Latin only, right? So this is what it is, and the Wycliffe is the first one to translate the Bible into English. This is what we have about this age of Chaucer. Let's move further to the age of revival. So the age of revival, we didn't get to see any work, because this is the age of revival. This is the age of the 100 years of war. When there is a conflict in the country, how can you be at a peace and writing down your work? And something like this, there was a quotation by the Milton, when your country is in the conflict, right? So how can you do what, or maybe traveling or something like that he was doing. But there was a similar quote by the Milton. You can search it on Google if you want. So right, so at the very beginning of this period of the revival, we didn't get to see any work, right, which is a significant work, because it was the time period when they explored the treasure of the knowledge of the Greek scholars. They got to know about the botany, about the politics, about the architecture, a lot of things they got to know, subject of humanities. Before this, they were just indulged in the religion only. On the Christianity, they knew only the message of God was interpreted to them, but now this is a new knowledge and they are so curious to know this. So they put themselves into learning this. It was just merely a beginning of the Renaissance. The real Renaissance came later. When you have a knowledge, when you got to know something new, then you start doubting. They start doubting God. They start breaking those boxes. Now the mind is becoming more creative. When mind become creative, it was called the age of Renaissance. Now there are new inventions in the field of science, in the field of literature, right? The real Renaissance came into this field of literature during the age of Elizabeth. Even though during this age, what we are covering, as the Age of Revival, which is from the 1400 to the 1550, right? At the very beginning, there was no significant work was done, but towards the very later part of the Renaissance period, we have seen one of your invention was the invention of the printing, and it was brought to England by the William Caxton in the 1475. And Thomas Mallory work Les Morts d'Earth, which means the death of the author, which is about the legendary King Arthur. This is about him. This work is, and it was published during that period. And another work, because after that works, there were more works were published, because now it was more cheaper. It does not take that much. It was now the work to publish a book was not that laborious. With science, everything gets easy. So another work is the Erasmus, the Praise of Folly. Praise of Folly is the satire on the foolishness of the humankind. Then we have Utopia. Utopia means no place. The word is invented by the Thomas More. It was published in in the Latin language in the 1516 and in English in the 1551. Right, there is a character called the Raphael Hithlode. His name means the expert of nonsense. All right. So now another work we have is by the Roger Ascham, his Toxophyllus, which is the work about the longbow archery, right? And there we have two characters who are having this dialogue, right? There is a lover of study, and there is a lover of longbow archery. They having a dialogue between them. All right, and another play or the other work by the Roger Ascham is the Schoolmaster, which is published even though in the 1570 in the age of the Elizabethan. But as we are discussing this writer here, so I thought that we should discuss his another work as well. And his Toxophyllus is published in the 1545. And William Tyndale, he also published the New Testament in the 1525. It was the illegal translation of the Bible, as we know that it was the time period, the only language which was acceptable is the Latin, right? But then this thing got removed when Henry VIII was not allowed, and he was refused to end his marriage with his wife by the Pope. Right? So they draw England out of the control of the Pope, and they paved the way for the Protestantism. Now England became Protestant. Right? Protestant means there is a freedom in Protestantism. In Catholic Church, every single day you go to the church. You sit there, only there in the church is the God. But Protestantism says you sit back at home. You can read your Bible at home. God is everywhere. The Protestantism makes sense. Catholicism was a completely, like, you have to be blind to follow this religion. So there was a huge difference. But the moment William Tyndale published this New Testament during this time period, it was not allowed. Right? But it got published at the time. They smuggled few books to England, and he ran here and there. He was imprisoned, right? So all such a things happened. So this is about the Age of Revival. This is how this age was. And one of the thing, as our Age of Elizabethan, we start from the 1558. Before that, the Thomas Wyatt, as we said, that the Greco, this knowledge, this treasure of knowledge was found by the all over the world. It was the age of Renaissance. So when Turks attacked the Constantinople, these scholars ran away to Italy, and your Petrarch sonnet were brought to England by the Thomas Wyatt, and they published them in their Total Miscellany with the Earl of Surrey in the 1557. There it is the sequence of the 54 sonnets, right? And then later a lot of experiments were done by the Shakespeare and like your Philip Sidney, right? Even your Edmund Spenser, Amoretti he wrote, which was a sequence of the 89 sonnet, which was referred to the Elizabeth Boyle, right? And then later by the Philip Sidney, which we will discuss later in the age of Elizabeth. But as we are discussing about the sonnets, so let's talk about the Astrophel and Stella, which is the sequence of the 108 sonnets. Astrophel is the star lover and the Stella is the star, and she represents the character of the Lady Penelope, and the star lover is the Philip Sidney himself here. So this is the age of revival we talked about. Let's talk about now the age of Elizabeth. This is known as the golden age of English literature, and one of the significant historical movement here is the Spanish Armada in 1588, even though much later, but now they are, after the victory of Spanish Armada, now they are ruling the sea. Now the sea is there. Now they put the ships, and now they are ready to explore the world and rule the other nation. Now they rule and control and dominated other nations, other places, more money coming back to home. And now the authors and the writers got the freedom, as they got the more patrons and the guardians who paying for them, who's taking care of them. They just have to focus on their craft. And this is what they did. And that's why we see the literature was flourishing during this period. And drought of the most admirable and significant works get over during this period with the Edmund Spenser, when he published his the Shepherd's Calendar in the 1579 and his Fairy Queen. First three part of it were published in the 1593, and the later three part published in the 1596. There we have all 6 books of the Fairy Queen. But let me talk about first about the Shepherd's Calendar, which is published in the 1579. There are the 12 eclogues, each and every single eclogue to a 1 month of each and every single month of the year. In the January, they talk about the Colin Cloutler for the Rosalind. In the April month, they praise the Elizabeth. In May, they talk about the reformation of the churches. These are the most important information, so make sure you keep them in your mind. Then we have your Fairy Queen, right? I discussed the date when which books were published. 6 books we have. The first book talk about the virtue of holiness, represented by the Red Cross Knight. Second one talks about the virtue of temperance, represented by the Sir Guion. The third one talks about the virtue of the chastity, represented by the Britomart. The fourth one talks about the justice of the friendship, represented by the Campbell and Telamont. The fifth one talks about the virtue of the justice, represented by the Sir Artegall. The sixth one talks about the virtue of the courtesy, represented by the Sir Calidore, who is the character of the Sir Philip Sidney. It is written in the Spenserian stanza. Rhyme scheme is the ABA, BBC, BCC. I call it Abba, Babak, Bakak. This is like I'm making a sound out of it, so remember it for a longer period of time. So you have your own acronyms, your own ways. This is mine. Right, so another work, Amoretti, I already discussed with you when we were discussing the sonnets. 89 sonnets dedicated to the Elizabeth Boyle. Epithalamion, there we have Hymen of the Wedding, 1595 it was published. Then we have the Astrophel, dedicated to the Philip Sidney. It is the elegy, written in the 1591. Then we have the Philip Sidney, famous for his work Apology of Poetry, which is the reply to the Stephen Goson's School of Abuse, 1579. He attacked the poetry. The reply came from the Philip Sidney in the 1595. It was published posthumously. Astrophel and Stella, we discussed while we were discussing sonnets. 108 sonnet sequence it is, and 11 songs. Astrophel is the star lover, Stella is the star, Lady Penelope. Astrophel is the Philip Sidney. Then we have Arcadia, one of his work dedicated to his sister Mary. So this is about the Philip Sidney. Okay, now let's talk about the university wits. The first one is the Christopher Marlowe, and very famous for his play and mostly famous for his ambitious character, who represent the spirit of the men of Renaissance. Men of Renaissance means ambitious. We human, when we have a doubt, when we have a creativity, when we can think, when we have no control over us, we have desires, we want whatever we want. We are given earth, we want star, we are given star, we want galaxies. When we are given galaxies, we want the whole solar system. This is how ambitious men's are. This is how his characters were. The Dr. Faustus play. It was premiered in the 1592 and published in the 1604. So Dr. Faustus is the ambitious character scholar of the Wittenberg University, Germany. And while he was there, he was just fed up with the knowledge, whatever he had. He wanted to have some more knowledge. He wanted to know and learn now magic. And for that, he sold his soul and gave his soul to the devil, the Lucifer, who allotted him 24 years of full freedom, that he can use his magic, and the Mephistopheles will be his servant who drag him later when his time period was over, right? And this play is written in the blank verse. Next play is the Timberlane the Great. This Timberlane the Great is about the Timberlane, who was the Scythian shepherd who became the emperor of the Persia later. This is the power of ambition, the desire, the only thing you have, what you want to achieve, the law of attraction. If you see just net now in front of your eyes, I just want net, I don't want anything else. So you will fill up your mind only with the memory of net, not your relatives, relationship, money, this and that. Only net you can see. Net will be yours because this is what you are then working towards. So these characters want knowledge. These characters want the power, the wealth, and that's what they gained. Persepolis is the setting of the Timberlane. Then we have the Jew of Malta. The setting is the Malta. His ambition for the wealth and the power. All right. He is a Jew, and there is a conflict between the Jews, the Christian, and the Turks in this play. Now, let's talk about another university wit, the Robert Greene, who is famous for his mark on the Shakespeare, for calling him an upstart crow beautified by our feathers. His famous play is the Freya Bacon and Freya Bungay, right? And then later we have the Thomas Nash, who is mostly famous for his Unfortunate Traveller, or the Jack Wilton. It is the picaresque novel. It is the picaresque novel. There, the Jack Wilton go with the Henry Howard to the Munster, Germany. There they meet the Thomas More and the Erasmus, who are working on their masterpieces. Erasmus on the Praise of the Folly, and Thomas More on his Utopia. We have John Lyly. His most famous work is the Euphues Anatomy of Wit, published in the 1578. And he invented the term Euphuism, which means the elegant way of speaking and writing. Another character we have here is the Thomas Kyd. Thomas Kyd is famous for his play Spanish Tragedy, 1592, even though the date is not confirmed, but still the date is given to it in the 1592. All right. So there is a play within a play. It is a Senecan tragedy. Senecan tragedy means there is a bloodshed, supernatural elements, ghosts, and witches. Whose ghost? Don Andrea, the lover of the Belle Imperia, who is killed by the Balthazar, who also killed with his companion Hieronymo's son Horatio. Now Belle Imperia and Hieronymo put up the play called Solyman and Preseda. Solyman role play by the Balthazar, and Preseda played by the Belle Imperia. So instead of using the fake knives, they used a real one and stabbed their enemy, right, and ended their lives. George Pillay, one of the university wits, Old Wives' Tale, right? Old Wives' Tale is a satire on the romantic works, or the romantic plays of that time. It was the first satire on the romance related works, I would say. All right, and then we have a Big Fish, which is obviously the Shakespeare. So we will try to cover up most important work of him. One of it is the Hamlet. We know Hamlet is about the king of Denmark, whose ghost appear to come in front of his son, who wants him to take a revenge on his uncle Claudius, who killed him and took his mother Gertrude. Now he also devised the plot to kill Hamlet, the Claudius, and the Hamlet we know, he feigns the madness. There is a play within a play called The Murder of the Gonzago, which is renamed by the Hamlet as the Mouse Trap. And now, second play of his is the Macbeth. And while the Banquo and the Scottish army general, the Macbeth is coming, they met the three witches who predicted that he will become the king of the Scotland. And now he was encouraged by the Lady Macbeth to kill the king of Scotland, to become the king of Scotland. Now their hands red with the blood. Now the smell cannot be even taken out by the Arabic scent. It's a rhyme, and it is a reality. I think it is one of the quote there in the play, that the smell cannot be even, she cannot get rid of the smell even by the Arabic scents, right? So he and she killed the King Duncan, as we have to say the hundreds of lies to hide the one lie. The similar way he killed a lot of people to hide this one murder, right? So let's talk about another play of his, which is the Othello. Othello is a black general in the army of the Venice, right? And he picked or appointed the Cassio as his chief lieutenant over the Iago. So Iago have the jealousy now, and so now he decided to plant a seed of doubt in the mind of the Othello against his wife Desdemona, that she is having an affair with the Cassio. And later Othello killed his own wife. We covered Hamlet, we covered the Macbeth, we covered the Othello. Now the King Lear. So King Lear is the old monarch, and he wants to divide his kingdom, his empire, between his three daughters, as he has no son to coronate as a king. And the only criteria is the expression of the love towards him. How much love you will express, the more the love you express, the more part of the share will come to you. So the Regan and the Goneril